Back the news in details. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi arrived in the Russian city of Sochi on Tuesday, where he co-chairs the first Russia-Africa Summit and Economic Forum with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Upon his arrival, al-Sisi held talks with the head of the Russian company Gas, which is specialized in means of transportation. Presidential spokesman Bassam Radi said the meeting focused on cooperation in the coming stage. Earlier, he said that an Egyptian-Russian summit between President al-Sisi and his counterpart Vladimir Putin would be held during the visit. According to Radi, the talks are to focus on boosting bilateral ties within the framework of the Comprehensive Partnership and Strategic Cooperation Agreement and the keenness to intensify deliberations over issues of mutual concern. The summit is to include 2 general sessions and conclude with a final communique. During the visit, President al-Sisi is to hold a number of meetings with African leaders taking part in the event, besides his participation in the Russian-African Economic Forum, which will focus on a number of axes such as developing trade cooperation and economic ties between Russia and African states. African leaders and business figures as well as investors from both sides are to take part in the forum. Earlier in Russia's Black Sea resort of Sochi, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi had met with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin on October 17th of 2018. During that visit, which coincided with the 75th anniversary of relations between Egypt and Russia, Putin issued a decree approving a signing of a comprehensive partnership and strategic cooperation agreement.
Meeting in Russia's Black Sea resort of Sochi, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi met Russian President Vladimir Putin on the 17th of October 2018. During the meeting, they have signed what was described as a strategic cooperation treaty designed to increase trade, economic, military and other ties between both nations. President al-Sisi hailed the talks with President Putin on October, described as the cooperation agreement as opening a new chapter in the history of Egyptian-Russian relations. Putin said the talks encompass the whole spectrum of bilateral relations as well as key international and regional issues of mutual concern. The visit by President al-Sisi is the 4th since 2014, while President Putin visited Egypt in 2015 and 2017. Egypt has signed a multi-billion-dollar deal to strengthen economic and trade ties. During Putin's last visit to Egypt, officials of Egypt and Russia signed a deal for Russia to build a nuclear power plant in Daba. The agreement to start work on Egypt's Daba nuclear power plant was linked with Russia on December 11, 2017, which is the biggest project between the two countries since implementing the High Dam project. Both projects have strategic importance as modern technology has been used for the welfare of the Egyptian people. In Sochi, President al-Sisi and Putin discussed implementation of the Russian industrial zone along the Suez Canal. The two leaders also discussed resuming direct flights from Russia to Egyptian resorts. Trade between Egypt and Russia has increased 62% last year, reaching $6.7 billion and continued to expand at a swift pace this year.
Cairo and Moscow share a number of common goals to preserve and enhance bilateral cooperation. Meeting with President Vladimir Putin last year, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi discussed economic cooperation and the implementation of joint projects, as well as ways to build on the two countries' growing military cooperation.
Meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi discussed economic cooperation and the implementation of joint projects, as well as ways to build on the two countries' growing military cooperation. During the visit, which coincided with the 75th anniversary of relations being established between Egypt and Russia, Putin issued a decree approving the signing of a comprehensive partnership and strategic cooperation agreement. During the visit, President al-Sisi met with the chairman of the board of Euro-Asian Economic Commission. During the meeting, the president underlined the importance of reaching a free trade agreement that could contribute to doubling trade and joint investments. The EEC is the permanent regulatory body of the Euro-Asian Economic Union, a five-country grouping of Armenia, Belarus, the Republic of Kazakhstan, the Kyrgyz Republic, and the Russian Federation. The EAEU was keen to begin negotiations with Egypt on a free trade agreement. The president also met with Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev and other senior Russian officials to discuss ways to bolster Russian investments in the Suez Canal Economic Zone. In May, Egypt and Russia signed a 50-year agreement to build a Russian industrial zone in the new Suez Canal Economic Zone. The zone, built on an area of 5.25 million square meters at a cost of $7 billion, is at the forefront of plans to increase trade and economic cooperation between the two countries. Russian investments in Egypt by the end of 2018 reached $6.7 billion, with more than 60% in the oil and gas sector. According to the Russian Federal Customs Service, the volume of bilateral trade between January and April 2018 reached $2.163 billion, a 49% increase on the same period last year. Russian exports to Egypt increased by 50% to reach $1.8 billion, while exports from Egypt recorded a 41% hike to $481 million. During the visit, officials from Egypt's Ministry of Electricity and Russia's State Atomic Energy Corporation updated El-Sisi and Putin on progress in constructing the nuclear power plant at Daba. Negotiations to build the plant, which will consist of four 1,200 megawatts reactors, began in 2015. In May 2016, President Sisi approved an agreement under which Moscow provides a $25 billion loan to finance the construction of the 7-year project to be paid off over 35 years. El-Sisi's meeting with Putin included a follow-up on project specifications and discussions of the timetable for the construction of the nuclear plant. Cairo and Moscow share a number of common goals, with both countries determined to preserve and enhance bilateral cooperation.
In a statement issued by the Foreign Ministry on Tuesday, Egypt expressed its shock and deep concern over the statements which were attributed to Ethiopia's Prime Minister, Abiy Ahmed, before the Ethiopian Parliament. The Ethiopian Prime Minister's statements included negative signals and unacceptable hints related to the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. The Foreign Ministry added that the statement surprised Egypt as it was not appropriate to deal with this issue with a speech that involves military options, in contrary to the principles and spirit of the African Union Basic Law. The statement also expressed Egypt's astonishment from the statements that come days after the Ethiopian Prime Minister received the Nobel Peace Prize, which should have prompted the Ethiopian side to show good political will and flexibility towards reaching a legal agreement. The National Security Agency arrested 22 elements who tried to use the attack on Mahmoud al-Banna in al-Munufiyya governorate to instigate citizens and turn public opinion against the state through publishing lies and rumors. The crackdown came after security forces monitored attempts by the terrorist Brotherhood group and a number of inciters to manipulate the incident. Handouts and weapons were seized with the inciters who intended to use them to instigate violence, create chaos, and disrupt the flow of traffic near the court where the trial of the attacker was held in Shibinakum. Legal procedures were launched and the state's supreme prosecutor started investigations. The Ministry of Civil Aviation welcomed on Tuesday Britain's decision to resume flights to the Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh. Due to bad weather and heavy rains, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli announced on Tuesday that schools and universities in the Greater Cairo area have been given the day off on Wednesday as heavy rains are expected.